So this is a topic that I've been actively attempting to avoid discussing, mostly because I didn't want to be another person on the internet giving you guys my high-level opinion, promoting the same conversation and points that everyone else was. Rather, I wanted to come at this from a different perspective, and that is in regards to the question of should we subjectively bias game review scores and coverage if a studio promoted or forced game development crunch during a game's production? And not only that, but should we collectively refuse to play, purchase, or even discuss a game that is a victim of development crunch? And what really promoted this topic was the events and awards that took place over the 2020 Game Awards, and the discussion I saw a lot of people were taking part in after the awards. But before I get into that, I'll actually want to go ahead and give you guys sort of a brief summary on game development crunch and my opinion on it, because again, I never sort of touched upon that. We can have that for the record. Obviously, I think we need to do something about it. I am happy to see that people are doing their best to promote the conversation and really trying to get others to rally behind it and make a firm stance on saying, no, this is wrong and you need to do better. There's what's always been sort of interesting to me is that video games are the most lucrative form of media entertainment in existence. Games make more than film and music combined. Yet film producers, directors, and music artists get paid millions and millions of dollars for each project they work on. And game developers and even developers who are in creative lead roles rarely break six figures a year. And games are far more complex to create than just music and films, and they take many more man hours than either of those industries or any other media industry for that matter, and yet the gaming industry hasn't made any strides to attempt to further increase wages or benefits for its developers. It's really only the execs who get paid the big bucks, the men and women in suits who really kind of make decisions on the release dates of games and which games get made and which don't, etc. And I think the core reason behind this is really in part due to the infancy of the gaming industry. And video games, have been around for a while, but if you sort of look at everything, the mass appeal and commercialization of video games has only taken off more recently. And I remember being super shocked to see games being advertised on billboards and TV back in the mid-2000s, and now it's commonplace to see, games advertised everywhere, and the reception that gaming has taken a turn for the better. I see a lot of adults who are really promoting and playing video games as well. I also remember sort of growing up and, games were looked at as like a kid's thing, and I see many adults today with their families and kids really taking part in the experience, whether casually or hardcore, but it's still great to see that happen. So I actually met with someone who was a contract worker for game development studios, and specifically he worked on sound design, and we had lunch together, and this was about 5 or 6 years ago. He was a friend of a friend, and we kind of got put in contact that way. And it's been a long time, and I was actively making an attempt to get into the gaming industry at that time. And while I sort of stopped looking for that at this time, and I've sort of changed my career and lifestyle focus, it's still something I'm very passionate about. But I'm working on other projects, and hopefully I will have something done soon, and we'll have to wait and see what happens there. But anyway, I met with this guy over lunch, and he sat down, and at the time he was working on Uncharted 4 over at Naughty Dog, and he gave me a lot of insider information. But he's told me one thing, and I think he was basically hinting at a game development crunch when he told me this. He told me this one thing about game development, and it's that you disappear for months. He told me you need to understand that the final stages of game development, you disappear. You're locked in working on the game for completion. You don't have a social life. You don't see your family, and that this wasn't basically a job for everyone. And he sort of made this point that loving games was simply not enough. And that, that for me was like a big eye opener, because when he said that, I sort of knew all along that I had a reason, like a true belief of why I needed to make games and the stories I wanted to tell and everything like that. But it got me thinking of, would I actually be happy doing that? And what would I have to give up in order to basically be successful there? And could I ever play games again? So ultimately, I made the decision after months of doing that to just focus on other careers that would afford me the lifestyle I always wanted, but also allow me happiness and freedom as well. And while I'm not 100% of the way there yet, I am on the right track, and I've made a lot of strides in making an effort to inch closer towards that goal. But I think the industry is still in its infancy where, there's a lot of gray areas and we haven't really figured out how to handle game development, where there's sort of this still kind of garage style mentality to it where there are no rules and it's your life's work and all that stuff. And I'm not sure what the solution is there. Do we get unions involved? Like, do we get game development? Do we make game development more of a public thing? Like, again, this is what's great about the promotion of the conversation as we're trying to sort of figure out all that stuff. But what's concerning, is that this has been going on for a while. And we hear about it rather commonly today, in a connected world where developers are on social media and there's no privacy with anything anymore. Like today we hear about it quite often, but this has been happening for decades more than likely. And with managers more or less sort of used to, doing things a certain way, I wonder, how do we get them to change their course? Like how do we discuss leadership and promote a good work ethic to someone who's worked in the industry for 2 or 3 decades? How do we approach that? But anyway, I'm happy to see the conversation surrounding it, and I'm going to leave the actual problem solving up to better and smarter people than me. So there you have it. That's my take on Development Crunch. But back to the topic at hand. Like I said, what really promoted this was the Game Awards this past year, and more specifically, The Last of Us 2 winning Game of the Year from it. And besides people's personal opinion on the narrative decisions behind the game, I actually saw quite a few people making the point that, how can this game win Game of the Year? Naughty Dog crunched their devs so bad it doesn't deserve it. And it just got me thinking, like, is this okay? I'm not making this video to tell you guys what's right and wrong. Like, I want to actually ask you all the question. Do you think that we should ignore quality, ignore artistic creativity, and everything else that makes a game, and bias the end result based on the political nature of how a studio is ran? And, for me personally, I don't think I can agree with that. You all know that whenever I sit down and give you guys sort of my opinions on games, I do make the best attempt possible to be objective. And I don't ever discuss the nature of the game's development studio and how things were run, because what we're discussing is the game, not the people making it. And I think if you look at like The Last of Us 2 as a quality standard and judge it against the competition, again, regardless of subjective opinions regarding the narrative of the game and everything like that, the quality of the gameplay, the quality of the visuals, the sound, the acting is all superb. And when I played it, I was blown away by just the amount of sheer polish. I mean, you can see and feel all the hard work, the care, the love, and attention they put into every aspect of that game. But we are to ignore all that because the management of the studio sucks. That to me, it opens up a can of worms. And I think at the end, if we did that, if we took that stance, we'd be hurting the very same people we're trying to help. Because let's say the game fails, right? And it doesn't sell or meet expectations. The first ones to go are always the low-level, expendable employees. And how often do we hear about a studio that laid off many developers, but the management kept their jobs and kept their bonuses? Like, if we stopped purchasing games, those developers could potentially lose their jobs. And despite the shitty work environments that they may have, they are still able to provide for their loved ones at the end of the day. So I'm just not sure this is the right approach, quite honestly. And this is why I steered away from this topic, because I know a lot of people are very passionate about it. And I hope that, what you just heard me discuss didn't sound like I have all the answers, because I don't. We need to figure this out, but we also need to be careful and understand the consequences of our actions and decisions. And, the gaming community is an impassioned group of people. We speak up when we don't agree, and we let you know what we like. But I also think that we can't afford to get so emotional about this that it starts becoming destructive. There are better alternatives with dealing with issues at hand here, and we need to figure that out. Again, I'm not sure how we solve this, but what I can tell you guys is I just simply want to play games and have a good time. That doesn't mean I don't care. I'm simply saying I don't have the solutions for how we deal with this, but I do have confidence that this will be dealt with. So happy to hear what you all think and have to say, and look forward to hearing your thoughts. Thanks.